Today's air quality is mauve and speckled. Welcome to Night Vale. Representatives from the greater medical insurance community announced this week that major insurance providers would no longer cover government-disseminated illnesses. These ailments were created to control undesirable populations and include AIDS, most cancers, irritable bowel syndrome, telekinesis, tingling, and any kind of food allergy. Doctors advise that the best way to avoid acquiring any of these conditions is to limit questionable public activities. Try not to be in a lower economic class, and give regularly to an approved religious organization. Take these precautions, and you should live a healthy, or at least medically insured, life. In other health news, the Night Vale Council for Commerce reminds you to regularly consume wheat and wheat byproducts. By doing so, you are directly supporting the local Night Vale farmer, as well as the local Night Vale commodities conglomerates. Looking for a snack? Try wheat or a wheat byproduct. Dinner? Wheat and or its byproduct. Trying to patch a leaky roof? We have just the thing for you, and we also have its byproducts. Wheat and wheat byproducts. By Americans, for Americans, in Americans, watching Americans. New information on the Apache Tracker, who you might remember as that white guy who wears the cartoonishly inaccurate and offensive Indian headdress, and who disappeared some weeks ago after investigating the strange occurrences at the Night Vale post office. Well, word is in that he has reappeared, except it now seems he is actually Native American. Witnesses say his features are still recognizable, but during the disappearance he is transformed into that which he always absurdly claimed to be. More explanation, of course, is needed, but the Apache Tracker is also now only able to speak Russian, and I did not bother to get his statement translated. Apparently, he has been taking to leaning on the hood of an old Honda Accord in the parking lot of the Desert Flower Bowling Alley and Arcade Fun Complex, shaking his head slowly and checking his watch. Does his complete racial transformation make his previous actions less offensive, listeners? Write us a letter telling us what you think, and then put it away in a drawer for 10 years. Reading it again, you'll get a little pang of nostalgia for the person you used to be once upon a time. The City Council today issued a strong warning against the manufacture and sale of discount bloodstones. They say that these bloodstones of inferior design and construction have the potential to cause major accidents in even common, day-to-day chanting rituals. These accidents have included, in just the past few months, locust swarms, pus tornadoes, and the creation and subsequent obliteration of a mirror version of Night Vale, forcing all of us to watch our identical counterparts perish, and thus confront the inevitability of our own futures. Anyone caught selling these bloodstones will be put into the dark box, pending erasure from recorded history. The lesser charge of buying or possessing them will be met with mere summary execution. Critics charge that the city council is lying about all of this, due to the fact that the council owns the only certified bloodstone factory in town. But the council has vehemently denied this charge by gibbering, howling, and knocking over microphones.
Oh dear. I apologize, listeners. We at Night Vale Community Radio are experiencing the following technical problems. The need for air, eye movement, and gooey stuff inside. Please stand by.
Thank you. These problems have been corrected. An update on our previous message about wheat and wheat byproducts. You should not eat wheat or wheat byproducts, say several frantic scientists waving clipboards in our studio. As it turns out, all wheat and wheat byproducts, for unknown reasons, have turned into venomous snakes, which are crawling all over our small city, causing even more chaos than is normal. These snakes have been described as terrifying, loathsome, and probably from the bowels of hell itself. Also, green and 3 feet long. If you have any wheat or wheat byproducts in your home, you are almost certainly already dead. Sorry about that. Property taxes are going up again, Night Vale. Several citizens are justifiably upset over this latest increase, but municipal services do, after all, cost money. Schools, public transportation, parks and recreation facilities, and, of course, the multi-billion-dollar Pulsar Development Facility. Speaking of which, scientists say that they are on the verge of developing the first ever human-made neutron star. Usually the aftermath of a supernova, this pulsar would be roughly 4 miles in diameter, but with a nearly incomprehensible density that makes it about half the mass of our own sun. And to think, this rapidly rotating sphere of radioactive matter will be right here under the sands of Night Vale, producing enough energy to power the Earth for billions of years. The city of Night Vale plans to use the pulsar to light the high school football stadium, which still uses whale oil lamps. John Peters, the farmer, is particularly upset, not only about the pulsar development, but also about the higher taxes. As owner of more than 150 acres, John will certainly have to pay a large share. And given that John is a peach farmer in a desert, he hasn't actually raised a successful crop ever. His only income is his $500,000 annual subsidy for imaginary corn, which has been one of Night Vale's greatest exports. People come from all over, even Desert Bluffs, unfortunately, to buy his imaginary corn. I like to butter up a piece of bread and then rub the imaginary corn along it and then sprinkle it with a little bit of salt and cayenne. Boy, is that a delicious and low carcinogen summer treat. But even our town heroes like John Peters, the farmer, have to pay their fair share. No citizen is above paying taxes. Well, except Marcus Vanston, but that's understandable because he's so wealthy. When you're worth as much as Marcus Vanston, you have proved your value to society through hard work and determination, and are no longer required to show anyone any further proof that you care about anything or anybody else, because you obviously do. Look at all your money. According to some, Marcus is worth over $5 billion. And that's 5 billion reasons Marcus is our town's greatest citizen. Further updates on wheat and wheat byproducts. The good news is that they are no longer poisonous serpents. The bad news is that they have transformed into a particularly evil and destructive form of spirit. Please be aware that wheat and wheat byproducts are now malevolent and violent supernatural forces, capable of physically moving objects up to 200 pounds and entering human souls of up to soul strength 4. The frantic scientists, who are now hopping up and down just outside my recording booth, indicating various charts and figures, recommend creating a simple lean-to out of animal bones and mud, such as you might have made and played in as a child, and hiding there until the spiritual forces of wheat and wheat byproducts have passed. A reminder to all Night Vale citizens that the annual Sorrow Songs Sing-Along is this Thursday. There will be a potluck lunch, and the softball team will be selling refreshments to fund things that each of them individually want to buy for themselves. Anyone who has their own sorrow song they'd like to add to our communal vocal malaise should submit it to City Hall by Tuesday at the latest. Remember that low moans and minor key chants do not count. The composer of the best sorrow song, as indicated by our audience participatory Weep-a-meter, will be ritualistically drowned in a pool of our own townspeople's tears. Good luck! Listeners, the City Council, for national security reasons, have replaced the following report with the sound of a burbling brook, followed by the sound of a running blender. Friends, listeners, there's a what it does. City Comptroller Waynetta Barnett received a $1.5 billion check from the federal government this week. The check was to support rebuilding efforts from this past week's massive earthquake, reaching 9.7 on the Richter scale, the epicenter of which was directly below Night Vale. Of course, we experienced absolutely no damage to the town, and nobody reported feeling any effects at all from this enormous seismological event. Comptroller Barnett says that she suspects that FEMA just saw the meter reading, declared this a disaster area, and sent a check. She doesn't think they have any interest in visiting Night Vale, so we can probably just spend the money however we want. Barnett added that those new Mini Cooper sedans are really cute, and wanted us all to look at their website. We asked Carlos about our inability to experience tectonic shifts. Carlos, lovely Carlos, had previously recorded other massive tremor activity underneath our city. His response was a few seconds of stammering, followed by a sigh and slow head shake. His eyes were distant, distracted, yet beautiful. I asked him where he got his shirt. It fit him so well. He said he would look at his notes and computer models and see if he could figure out what was going on. I don't know if he listens to me sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen, I take you from an unreal disaster to an unreal one. It is my sad duty now to announce that the City Council is officially putting Night Vale under an emergency state, due to the ongoing and life-threatening wheat and wheat byproducts situation. The council states that anyone who has come into contact with wheat and wheat byproducts and has by some happy miracle survived should consider themselves infected and proceed to the usual quarantine area just behind the playground in Mission Grove Park, there to spend the rest of their days in quiet contemplation and weaving. Everyone else should head immediately to the wheat and wheat byproduct shelter that has been sitting unused for decades under the public library. When asked why a wheat and wheat byproduct shelter already existed, the city council answered simply, prophecy. May you all be safe. May you all be well. May you be strong and flexible with ruddy cheeks and legs like tree trunks. And now, the weather.
The cigarette burns forever. The messages spliced together. Now I would never let her. But where did people go to get her? You took me to the private party and swore that they would not card me. Drive careful lest they hear you, when all the time they learn to fear you. The sidewinder drinks and gambles, the gold digger strikes his damsels. When I lost the magic sandals, I said some things I could not handle. Going 90 off my star, it's always flashing by as the flame retards. Don't you wanna be some other? And all the people have to drug each other. Fell into a life of leisure. I saw into a path of pleasure. And don't it make it that much better to find a cigarette that burns forever?
News from old woman Josie out near the car lot. She reports that the angels have gathered in a circle in her living room, blocking her view of the television. They are shoulder to shoulder, facing each other, radiant with holy light. The bowling alley, they are chanting. The bowling alley. She says that a repeat of The West Wing she had really hoped to watch is on, and she is quite annoyed by her usually considerate, angelic house guests. More on this story, maybe, if there ever is more. And finally, some good news. All wheat and wheat byproducts have mysteriously vanished from Night Vale. And the city council promises that they will be gone forever. This scourge, this siege upon us, this salvo of food-based warfare is finally over. Nevermore will we be threatened in our homes by this enemy or its byproducts. We also will never eat bread again, and that's a pretty big bummer. But this is the balance that must be made between what we desire and what we fear, between pain and pleasure, between wheat, dear listeners, and its byproducts. Many of you are huddled now and forever in the quarantine behind the playground in Mission Grove Park. For this community-minded sacrifice, we thank you. I know you were forced there by martial law, but still, You should be commended for your brave action. Terminal quarantine might seem scary now, but I understand they have a well-stocked supply of canned lentils and the silver screen edition of Trivial Pursuit. And of course, you have the radio. I hope you will let my dulcet voice and our humble community station into your ears and hearts until your final wheat-loving breath. Dear listeners, stay tuned next for a live broadcast of a man locked in a recording booth, silently staring at the microphone with intense suspicion. And as always, since always, and for always, good night, Night Vale. Good night.
It's
The policeman in
party and a semi-improvised story inspired by good food and Dungeons & Dragons. A new meal and a new adventure are served weekly on Wednesdays. Listen to D&D for free on Spotify.
The policeman in that intersection is not directing traffic. He's coding an urgent message to all of us. Welcome to Night Vale. First, the news. Old Town Night Vale residents are complaining about extremely noisy sunsets. Several agitated citizens are pushing for the city council to do something about the solar shrieking every evening for the past few weeks. One homeowner described the sound as the parched cries of sad buzzards, or perhaps even the unholy voice of Old Scratch himself. The city council, speaking in unison at a televised press conference, said that the noise is just the windmill farms that litter the unfortunate wastelands of Desert Bluffs, and that the noises do not fall under Night Vale jurisdiction. Walton Kincaid, president of the community group Soundproof Old Town, said that the windmills can't possibly be the source of the noise, as they are non-existent, and also don't work because of Desert Bluff's staggering incompetence. The city council called a second press conference, wherein they all wordlessly stared down Kincaid for 14 uninterrupted minutes. Their dark eyes tore holes straight through the community spokesman, metaphorically speaking, until his soul was compacted into what looked like a partially chewed, black-eyed pea. Literally. To date, only Old Town residents have reported hearing these inconceivable noises every evening as the sun crosses the indifferent horizon. And the noises seem to be taking their toll. There have been 2 heart attacks, 12 cases of significant muscular atrophy, and at least 24 claims of folks growing third eyes, including Kincaid himself, who had an arachnid-like 8 eyes when he spoke before City Council yesterday morning. No other neighborhood can hear the sounds. I spoke to Simone Rigaudot in the Earth Sciences building at Night Vale Community College about this scientifically fascinating story, and she called it a simple case of celestial just desserts. Full disclosure, listeners, Rigaudot does not work in Earth Sciences. She is a transient living in the recycling closet of the Earth Sciences building, and she collects cans as pets. There is another hearing scheduled at 4 a.m. tomorrow on the highest ledge overlooking Skeleton Gorge, which can only be accessed by government helicopters. All previous endeavors to scale the cliffside by rock climbing enthusiasts have failed in extravagantly gory fashion. The council issued a statement wishing Kincaid luck in attending this mandatory meeting. Breaking news. We've received confirmation from the Sheriff's Secret Police that fugitive Hiram McDaniels was finally apprehended. McDaniels has been on the lam since August. He was wanted on several counts of insurance fraud, falsifying identification papers, evading arrest, and assaulting a police vehicle with fire. McDaniels was spotted near his Earl Road apartment early Saturday morning by several alert neighbors. The neighbors said they were able to identify McDaniels because he matched police sketches of an 18-foot-tall, 5-headed dragon that had been posted across Night Vale. Fingerprints later confirmed that McDaniels was definitely a dragon. Secret police are still unsure of McDaniels' motives for returning home. And, well, listeners, our station intern Stacy just handed me a photo of Hiram McDaniels. He is a very dynamic-looking dragon. The raw power, the intensity in those 5 faces, those many sets of piercing blue and red and black and green and yellow eyes. I can certainly see how he charmed his way out of an arrest. He must never get tickets. What a guy. An unsigned press release I found under my pillow this morning announces the following. There is a free party this Friday at the abandoned missile silo outside of town. The purpose of this party is to celebrate. There will be no sign or music, but the party is inside the silo. This party takes place at 3 a.m. and will be over at 3:05. It will be dark, both inside and outside the silo. Grope blindly towards happiness. Keep your mouth open and your teeth together to indicate you are at a party. You will hear noises, and later you will not. This party will feature special guest Bon Jovi, although he does not yet know it. See you there. An interesting note on Hiram McDaniels. Intern Stacy tells me that she's been Googling the roguish dragon. Did you know that he has a blog? He's a very smart fellow, some really groundbreaking ideas. Here's one post from last week. If I were mayor of Night Vale, I would give incentives for small business development and focus on youth physical fitness programs. Human youth are the human future, after all. Well, it seems a certain multi-headed fugitive wants to become mayor of Night Vale. You have my vote, Hiram. Thursday night, the City Council is voting on a new measure that would prohibit breathing as an involuntary muscular action. Historically, the human body has been able to control breathing without the brain needing to consciously activate the diaphragm. Under the new rule, all residents of Night Vale would be required to make the physical choice of whether or not, and when, to breathe. The City Council said that we have too long taken the receipt of oxygen for granted, and that this sense of entitlement must cease. If the vote passes, residents will have until March 1st of next year to learn to control these involuntary muscle groups during lucid sleep. Detractors say that it is our constitutional right to breathe how we want, and that it is not the government's job to legislate breathing. The council responded by waving a brick in the air at reporters and shouting, "We learned to beat our own hearts. We taught ourselves to wet our own corneas. We have pulled ourselves up from nothing. It is the American dream." Then they took a deep breath all together, lowered the brick, broke it into pieces, and devoured it. And now a word from our sponsor. We all want to live forever, right? Wrong. Think about watching your family die as you selfishly carry on. Your children aging and passing, your grandchildren, and so on. Think of all the friends you'll make, but eventually lose. You don't want that. No. You know the Earth is eventually going to be swallowed by the sun, right? And one day you would be present for this greatest of all apocalypses. As fascinating as this would be, scientifically speaking, this excitement would fade as the pain of 1,000-degree flames engulfed your tender body, and your aged mind would be so alone in this interminable torture. Does this sound like something you want? We didn't think so. Immortality is stupid. Think before you wish. This message brought to you by DirecTV. Dear listeners, right after we reported on Hiram McDaniel's interest in becoming Night Vale mayor, the dirty campaign tactics came into play, stirring up bad feelings and slinging the old municipal mud. Incumbent Mayor Pamela Winchell issued a statement citing township bylaws that prohibit prisoners from running for public office. Now, isn't it just like a career politician, such as Mayor Winchell, to make such unethical ad hominem attacks on a great reptilian beast, simply because he's in jail? It sounds to me like the mayor is feeling McDaniel's breathing down her neck. Breathing dragon fire, that is. Give 'em hell, Hiram. The following is a test of the emergency dream broadcast system. In the event of an actual emergency, you would just now be experiencing a dream in which you were in the neighborhood where you grew up, only all the houses are now black, featureless cylinders. Just row after row of these blank, dark cylinders stretching out around you. You are home, but you are also somewhere from whence you will never find home again. There is someone waiting for you at the end of the longest street. You know that, although you do not know who. You try to run down the street and it grows longer and longer. You pass by one cylinder in particular and know that it's your house. You stop running. You approach the blank face of the cylinder, its surface seeming to devour light and sound. You reach out, and you are inches from touching it. Just then you hear a ding. You look up to see words in the sky. Possible flash floods, they say. Alert valid until 3 p.m. Once again, this has been a test of the emergency dream broadcast system. The Night Vale Mall is having to deal with angry calls from parents after the Santa they hired for Christmas photos was once again a no-show. Mall public relations officials said that the missing Santa is actually a performance art piece meant to show people how our capitalist idols are truly non-existent, ghosts of materialistic ideas that we have embraced as replacements for true spiritual meaning. A long line of upset parents and crying children stretched from Santa's empty chair to just past the Hollister. The mall PR officials added that they have a really cool idea for Valentine's Day. They're thinking like moving pictures of actual beating hearts projected onto a large teddy bear, which has been stretched open like a vivisected frog from 7th grade life science. Officials added, it's going to be monstrous and beautiful. You don't even know what art really is. You don't even know yourself. They concluded by chanting and pumping their arms in unison, like a lower Paleolithic version of the YMCA dance. And now, the weather.
Just across from the hospital, still inside of the red lights, a couple that's where the old poet lived. In his eyeglasses and his necktie, at the window looking down on the young men passing by, on the fullness of the town, full of them good time gamblers, full of their restless wives, full of them midnight riders, out in the corridor on a Friday night, out in the brightness of a Friday night. And the big horns blowed and the pianos played, and the music rose to the old man's ears. I guess those were the olden days. I guess those were the golden years. 'Cause now the town is empty, empty as a mirror, empty as the harbor and the barber's chair. Where did the old poet go? I asked around. Nobody Maybe I came too early. Maybe I came too late. I'm waiting in the shadows of the scaffolds of the old cafes where you told me to wait. And I've got this lingering feeling. It's like I slipped between the fingers of the century. I know you know what I mean. I'll be a good time gambler. I'll be a restless wife. I'll be a midnight rider, out in the corridor on a Friday night. Call me a good time gambler. Call me a restless wife. Call me a midnight rider, out in the corridor on a Friday night, out in the brightness of a Friday night. Call me the brightness of a Friday night.
During the break, I received a message from Mayor Winchell's office responding to our previous reports. According to the mayor, mayoral elections aren't for another 3 years, and Hiram McDaniels is ineligible to run not only because of his jail stay, but also because he is neither a Night Vale resident nor a human being. There is, she says, no precedent for a 5-headed dragon as elected official. Mayor Winchell also pointed out that writing the throwaway phrase, "If I were mayor of Night Vale," on a blog is not an official declaration of candidacy. "There is paperwork," Mayor Winchell shouted into my voicemail. "You can't just... Oh, she continued, trailing off slightly at the end. What followed was about 95 seconds of loud stomping and what sounded like wood chopping in the distance before the message finally ended. Allow me a retort, dear listeners, with this brief editorial. With all due respect, Madam Mayor, have we not had enough dragon bashing? Our great country once held to some terrible old customs, but we grew up. We learned. We abolished slavery. Women won the right to vote. Ghosts can now marry, but of course not have children. I mean, that would be a real slippery slope. And our own little burg is on the verge of becoming the first city in this great nation to legalize time travel. So let's loosen our collars. Let's march into the reptilian future, not cling to the narrow past. Just because a dragon is a dragon and has 5 heads doesn't mean he can't lead our community. Sure, critics will say, "Oh, but Cecil, what if his 5 heads don't agree on something? What if one's like, yeah, let's build this school, but another's like, no more schools, and the others are drunk or sleepy or something? How can we agree to elect 5 heads that can't agree with themselves?" To this, I say, shame on you for your negative stereotypes of multi-headed beings. Free your mind. The rest, as our official town song says, will follow. The song also says, lap deeply of the scarlet mud after the blood rains of the apocalypse. But I don't think that quite applies here. So with this, I am proud to offer my endorsement of Hiram McDaniels for mayor of Night Vale. Sure, the election isn't for 3 years, but it's never too early to effect change. And in that time, we will rally. We will petition to get what we want. And soon, a great leader will rise. Lead us to that future, Hiram. Ah, but that is later. Now, it is dark. It is quiet. Just you and me, dear listener. Just my voice traveling from this microphone, traveling silent and immediate across sleepy homes and lost souls to your ears. You curl under a blanket, protecting your body from the world, excepting a few clever spiders. And you are listening, hearing me. Sleep heavily and know that I am here with you now. The past is gone and cannot harm you anymore. And while the future is fast coming for you, it always flinches first and settles in as the gentle present. This now, this us, we can cope with that. We can do this together, you and I, drowsily but comfortably. Stay tuned now for our 2-hour special, Car Alarms and Their Variations, brought to you commercial-free by Canada Dry. Good night, Night Vale. Good night.